Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blackhawks Roundtable presented by the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Brooke LoFurno, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Gail Kauchak, Connor Smith, and we also got a brand new team member, Hunter Crowther. Hunter, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you.
Hi, guys. Hello.
But obviously, we've been doing these shows bi-weekly, and the Blackhawks are already heading into their third week of the season, and there's a lot that's been going on. They had their practice this morning. It's Monday. We're recording on Monday, and a lot of news has been going on, so we'll cover all of that in the show today. But before we get into that, I have to tell you about the Hockey Writers have recently expanded into Substack. So we have a new Chicago Blackhawks Substack that you can subscribe to, and you'll never miss any content from our Hockey Writers team. All of our articles will be sent to your email Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you want to sign up for it, it's completely free. But you also have the option to sign up and upgrade for premium. And what you get with that is you'll get post-game recaps sent to your email after every show. We'll be doing Q&As weekly. We'll be doing quizzes with options to get prizes. And we'll also be doing prospect check-ins, just a lot of great content that you won't be able to get anywhere else. So if you're interested, you can sign up. The link will be in the video description. And please be sure to follow all of us on Twitter. Be sure to follow all of our articles on thehockeywriters.com. And all right, guys, let's get right into this. We got a lot to talk about today, and I'm actually really excited because it's kind of been an exciting start to the season, even though results have been kind of here and there, but it's still been an exciting, I think, last couple weeks. So let's get everything started with something that Gail recently wrote, which is an overview of where the Blackhawks stand to date. They've completed the first 6 games of the season, which included a tough 5-game road trip that spanned 11 days. It included 3 original 6 teams and 4 opponent home openers, which I know that the Blackhawks requested to be on the road to start the season to help with team bonding, but I don't think they wanted that kind of schedule. That was really something. But, I guess beggars can't be choosers. But they hung in there pretty well. But they finally got to come home to the United Center for their home opener, but it was against the Vegas Golden Knights, who are also the reigning Stanley Cup champions. Again, it just doesn't get easier for them. And it obviously, their record is 2-4-0. Obviously some good and bad there. Like I said, they hung in there pretty well despite the circumstances. So we're going to start with you, Gail, since you wrote the article. What is your biggest takeaway from the Blackhawks' first 6 games of the season?
Yeah, so I highlighted a number of things in my article, but one of the things I highlighted was the 3 young defensemen that are starting out and basically being paired with the veterans, and how all 3 of them actually are coming along quite well. But I would like to give a special shout out for my takeaway today to Alex Vlasic. Just recently, he got placed on the second pairing with Connor Murphy, but for the first 4 games, he was up on that top pairing with Seth Jones. He played tough minutes. He wasn't protected, and he just really looked to the part, averaging 19-14 minutes, just under Kevin Korchinski. Actually, I think Korchinski was 19-24 or something, but that's also because he's on the second power play unit. So I would say 5-on-5 time, you probably have Vlasic with the most time. And he just did great. He didn't look out of place at all. He was a +6, contributed 2 primary assists. And, I just think that this goes to show you that this development thing with taking your time with these guys is really paying off, because Vlasic basically played 15 games in 2021-22 and 6 games in 2022-23. But most of that season was actually playing for the Rockford IceHogs. And so he's got that base to get him going. So, I just think that he always looks positionally in the right place, and he's been able to use his long reach to break up opposing plays. He just looks the part of that top defenseman. So he's my shout out today.
Yes, I think we talked about Alex Vlasic a lot, thinking that he would probably make the team, but we didn't exactly know what his impact would be, especially with Wyatt Kaiser, because he looked so good during training camp. But Alex Vlasic has really shown out, and I'm really actually happy for him. Obviously, he's a hometown kid, easy to root for. I'm with you, Gail. I think that was a really big takeaway for sure. For me personally, I'm going to go with just the Blackhawks power play. I thought that during training camp, it looked like that could be a position of strength. And obviously the Blackhawks power play last year struggled a little bit, but I think most people thought it would be a lot better this season, especially with Connor Bedard and Lukas Reichel and Corey Perry and Nick Foligno, kind of all of these moving pieces. And then I think they went like 0 for 22 like before they finally broke through. Like it just wasn't good. And then they gave up 2 shorthanded goals to Colorado, the Colorado Avalanche. It just didn't look good for whatever reason. So I think my biggest takeaway was I was surprised that the power play struggled that much out of the gate, being the league worst with like a 4.5% success rate. Like really, it couldn't get worse than that. But they looked a lot better against the Vegas Golden Knights. At least they looked threatening and didn't look completely lost, even though they only converted once. But hey, they converted once. So, baby steps, but I think we'll see improvement there. But like I said, just was a little bit shocked that their power play struggled that much to start.
It's going to turn around. It's going to turn around.
Yeah, it's definitely going to turn around. I see it. We can feel it coming. But Connor, I'm going to go to you. What was your biggest takeaway from the Blackhawks' first 6 games of the season?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me through these first handful of games is just the overall resiliency of this team. It's obviously something we saw a lot last season, especially under head coach Luke Richardson, and just having that ability to bounce back, because even though this season's group is probably more talented on paper, when you match it up to other teams, that talent gap is still there. But I thought they did a very admirable job, even in games like that Boston game a few weeks ago and this past Saturday to Vegas. Even though they lost, they still were able to hang in there for most of the time. And sometimes it's going to be able to come through. We saw it in the Toronto game last week, but not always. And that's just what you're going to see when you're going through a rebuild like the Blackhawks are. But it's all about just being able to do the small things at the end of the day, whether it's having that physicality, being able to win puck battles. And I think that can all add up. And just the overall resiliency of this group 2 weeks in, I think, is what's really stood out for me.
Yes, I agree with you about resiliency, because I don't really think, or maybe you guys did, I can't remember, if we really had the Blackhawks beating Pittsburgh at home to start the season, even though we beat them last season at home, but that still seemed like a tough task to do. And I don't really think, you know what? And then with Vegas, like you said, we were tied. They were tied 2-2 at one point. They were with them. And I actually thought for the most part, they played better than Vegas for a lot of the game, I thought, until obviously the wheels came off and stuff. So I agree with you on resilience. Like I said, Colorado was probably, I think, their worst effort just in general. But overall, I do not think the Blackhawks, many people expected the Blackhawks to perform the way they did. So I agree with you. That kind of theme from last season is carrying over. And I think that's great to see. Hunter, I'm going to turn it over to you now. What stood out to you from the Blackhawks' first 6 games?
I'd say the biggest thing is just recognizing that it's still a team that's going to take some time to rebuild. I thought that they had great efforts nearly every night except for Colorado. And I think at the beginning of the season, when so much ink is spilled over which teams will be good or not, most people didn't think Chicago would not even compete for a playoff spot, but probably be in a lottery position. But in the first week and a half of the season, teams are realizing that it's going to be a tough effort every night. And all the credit to Luke Richardson for having a team be prepared to do that. And also to the veteran additions of Perry and Foligno and leadership from Dickinson. And I feel like even Seth Jones, who has his faults, but has seemed comfortable at times here. The team is realizing that it's going to take a little bit before they become a real playoff contender or a team that would be the favorite on any given night. But I think the teams that they played against, especially the Penguins and the Bruins, and for a lot of the game against Vegas, they were shocked at how much of a battle it's going to be to face them on any given night.
Yes, I'm with you. Especially, I think Toronto, I thought was a pretty good example of that. I think I was even one that put on Twitter after the game something about like, there's no way, especially because they were undefeated, I think, going into that matchup, and they're at home, and it didn't seem like it was going to be very pretty. And then they just completely went in there and just really kind of took over the whole arena. So, yeah, like you said, they're going to be a tough one to beat. I mean, like you said, there might be talent gaps, but they're not going to go down without a fight. So, like I said, good things to see even through the struggles there, I would say. So, for the next topic, we're going to talk about Lukas Reichel. I actually have an article talking about kind of just his performance as of late, because during the first 6 games, obviously this could have been kind of incorporated into the first one too, the first question, but he's someone that stood out to me because he had such a great training camp. And then obviously even the first game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, he was just really just invisible. And then but he looked, I think, the best he's looked all season against the Vegas Golden Knights. So he is finding his groove again. But overall, he has no points and is a -6 through the first 6 games. So definitely not the start he wanted, definitely not the start we wanted to see from him, especially because he did have 15 points in 23 games last season and was pretty consistent there. But I guess what we're going to be talking about here is how the Blackhawks can help Reichel to be more productive going forward. And obviously, he's had some inconsistent line mates with Philip Kurashev being out. Otherwise, Philip Kurashev, Andreas Athanasiou, and Lukas Reichel would be a line. But now he's been kind of with Taylor Radish. He's been with Tyler Johnson. He's just kind of been everywhere. But I would say, like I said, stay tuned for the article tomorrow. By the time this is published, it will be out, which will be Tuesday. But my whole thing about helping Lukas Reichel, to me, is making sure he's consistently paired with speedy playmakers. If you look at kind of his past play, it seems like he really only primarily does good with players that think fast and skate fast. That's usually Athanasiou, that's Kurashev. Even in Rockford, he was paired with a Joey Anderson, Brett Cini, Michael Tepley, just like players that are just really fast and think the same way, think the game the same way. Not to say Tyler Johnson and Taylor Radish are bad. They're actually very good, but they have very different play styles. So I think the way to help him, one of them for sure, is to kind of make sure he just stays with kind of fast playmakers. So that's kind of where my mindset is there. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. And Connor, I'm going to start with you here. What can the Blackhawks do to help Lukas Reichel become more productive here?
I think, like you said, having consistent line mates is definitely going to be huge. And I know he was kind of separated from Athanasiou for a little bit, but that's definitely going to be a good start. And as far as this situation goes with Reichel, I don't know if I think they're putting him in a really good position, actually, because I know there was some controversy about, oh, maybe he should go back to wing. But as I've said before, it's a contract year for him, essentially, with his ELC coming up. So I get the rationale there, but I think it may just be a situation with Reichel where he's still a very young player. And maybe we just kind of need to temper our expectations a little bit, as hard as that sounds. I mean, he had a very strong ending. I believe he had 3 stints in the NHL last year, and he had a very strong ending to his last stint. His second stint, he looked really good and just seemed to blend in there. But it may just be a situation where he only has, I think, when you combine the last few seasons, about 40-ish games under his belt. So I think by all means, he still has a lot of time to progress into a really solid top 9 forward. Obviously, he's not at the skill level of Connor Bedard, and that's totally fine. He's not necessarily the superstar, maybe some of us hoped early on, but I just think it's a situation where, I know it's easier said than done, but patience is going to be very key with Lukas Reichel moving forward.
That was actually a very insightful point, Connor, because we talk about the Blackhawks rookies on the team being Connor Bedard and Wyatt Kaiser and Kevin Korchinski, and how we preach patience, right? How the organization preaches patience with them. And Lukas Reichel is kind of in a weird territory where he's not really considered a rookie anymore, but technically in our mind, I think when we talk about him, he's still a prospect in our mind. So he probably deserves, like you said, the same patience that they're giving to Connor Bedard and all those other rookies too, because this is his first full season. He's had, flashes of the NHL, but this is his first full season. And yeah, you're right. I do agree with you. I think he probably deserves just allow him to grow into the game and he'll be fine for sure. Hunter, I'm going to move this on to you. What do you think the Blackhawks could do to make Lukas Reichel more productive? Or are you more on the side of just let him be, he'll be okay, they don't really need to do anything, just let him be?
I think it just requires patience. I know that it's still early in the season. We're not even at the 10% mark of the year yet. And also, too, he's third in the team in shots. So it's not like he's not trying to get pucks towards the net. Whether or not those are quality chances, you can argue that. But it just requires time. He's got one of the lowest possession numbers on the team with a Corsi under 40. And if you know the stat PDO, his is low enough where it essentially indicates that he's unlucky. And I think it's just something that, so much hype has been given to the young players on this team and hoping that they can produce. And I find with teams that are going to be lower towards the standings or at least rebuilding, the offense isn't always going to be there. You'll have nights where you randomly win a game 6-1, and you're going to have a lot of nights where you get thumped 4-0. But that doesn't mean that the player isn't trying to create opportunities for himself. And like anything with this season, it'll be patience because he's still a very talented player. Is he a top line player in this league? Maybe. But for now, just let him sort it out.
Yes, like all top players, especially for someone of his caliber, who was a first-round draft pick, who kind of has all these accolades, you just kind of let them be, and they got to figure it out for themselves. It's kind of just like Connor Bedard does. Connor Bedard's got to figure out the game for himself. All the other players have to figure it out too. So, yeah, he's in the same boat, I think, as everyone else. Gail, what do you think the Blackhawks need to do to help Lukas Reichel? Or do they not need to do? Just let him be, like we keep saying here.
Well, I'm with Hunter in that I think he really has had some good looks, but I think that his lack of actual production has maybe affected his confidence a little bit. He was so confident in preseason and in the scrimmages, and then when the games came around, it was a little bit different story. So again, I think I think we're all in agreement here. Put him back with Kurashev and Athanasiou. They all seem to be really good, a threesome there. And Kurashev is on his way back, so I think that will build his confidence again. And maybe not don't play him at center, but mix it up a little bit with the other two and ease him in a little bit, because I think that there's actually a lot of pressure on him at center as well.
Yes, I think there's definitely, and I'll be talking about that too, a human element to this as well. It's very hard to be in your first NHL season, essentially always having been a wing, even though he did play center a little bit in Rockford. It's not like he's a stranger to it, but that is a tall ask to go in a contract year and say you have to perform pretty well. But also, this will be your first kind of full season also as a center going forward until proven otherwise. So that is definitely a lot to put on a young player like him for sure. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with mixing it up there either. There's definitely things they can do. And the good news is this is all fixable. It's not like there are easy fixes here. It's not like you look at him and think there's really nothing they can do for him at this point. He is what he is. There's a lot they can do. And it's just about finding that balance. But good news is they have a lot of time. He'll be okay. They just got to, figure it out, and he's got to figure it out too. But we're not worried about Lukas Reichel. He's a great player. He'll be just fine. So moving on, I'm really excited about this one too, because if you guys have been watching our roundtables, we love talking about goaltending, even though I don't consider myself an expert on goaltending, but we seem to really enjoy talking about goaltending around here. So Connor, for those of you that don't know, Connor is our new goaltending guru, which I'm really grateful for, because Sean Filippelli, who was on our team, was originally our goalie guru. So we're really grateful for you, Connor. Thank you for that. But this is actually really exciting because we weren't very excited about the Blackhawks goaltending going into the season, thinking they had some potential, but it would probably be have its ups and downs. But actually, Peter Mrazek and Arvid Soderblom have actually been very good. This is probably the best I've seen Peter Mrazek look in a pretty long time. So they've been performing really well, and obviously their losses have not been on the goaltending. So Connor, since you wrote something about the Blackhawks goaltending depth, we're going to start with you here. Basically, what have you seen from the goaltending? What's been working for the goaltending?
I think the goaltending has almost kind of gone lost in the shuffle because there's so much hype about Connor Bedard and Kevin Korchinski and Alex Vlasic, and for very good reason. But when you think about positive surprises on this team, I think the goaltending has been huge for me in that regard. I know it's very early, but Peter Mrazek and Arvid Soderblom, like you said, have just looked really good. And I got to give a lot of credit to Soderblom in particular. I mean, I think 36 of 37 shots against a really deep Maple Leafs group. That's very good. And I know he maybe didn't have his best game against Vegas, but again, he's going to continue growing. So I think goaltending for me has just been really outstanding. And I think it's just a reflection of the goaltending depth this team has beyond just those two, because in Rockford, you have Drew Comesso and Jackson Stauber, who are going to grow this year, as well as Adam Guyon with the Green Bay Gamblers of the USHL, the first goalie taken in this past year's draft, 35th overall, and has some experience with Team Slovakia, the World Juniors. And obviously, this rebuild is very early, so I don't think you can really pinpoint just yet, who's going to be the next Corey Crawford, the number one of the future, and who will even be here 3-4 years from now when they're contending or when that window's ideally open or starting to open. But the good thing I think right now is that they have a foundation and they have depth, which is really important, I think, in the league today. I mean, you saw what happened last season with Vegas winning the cup, all the different guys that they had, a team like the Hurricanes, where you still have a guy like Kochekov who they're developing, and you still have someone like Anderson at the NHL level. So there are only so many Vezina finalists at the end of the day, or I should say caliber types of goalies like an Andrei Vasilevsky or a Connor Hellebuck. And I'm not sure if any of these guys are maybe going to get to that level. I think it would be a great surprise if they did. But I think the thing that's, really resonated with me is just the fact that they have a lot of, I think, really solid options for when they're going to contend. And you're starting to see that growth right now.
Yes, I agree with that. Hunter, what have you seen from the Blackhawks goaltending so far?
Just a lot of positives so far, like Connor's saying. It's still early in the season. We'll see how it stretches out over the course of an 82-game season. But this team last year had a combined save percentage of like 890, like well below what the league average was. So for a lot of the season, it was bad, to be blunt. And for all you can do is go up after a season like that. I think what happens too, if you look at teams that have rebuilt over the years, and especially ones that eventually become good, it's rare that the goalies that are on the team through the rebuild, or at least with the big club, are the ones that you end up going to a playoff run with or winning a Stanley Cup with. So right now you've got Peter Mrazek, who, if we're being candid, is probably playing for another contract in the NHL this year. And Arvid Soderblom, who's got a lot of potential, and you can only hope builds that over the course of his, at least upcoming career. But right now, what you're seeing are guys who realize they have an opportunity. Now, whether that opportunity is to become solidified goaltenders in this league and show it's, and also too, it's not just you playing for the team. You're showcasing other teams as well. Like whether it's Mrazek trying to play for a contract next year with someone else, or Soderblom showing to team management that he deserves to stick with the club. Right now, they're getting pretty solid performances so far, and if you're a fan of this club, you can only hope that it stays consistent.
Yes, I think we talked about that even before the season, that we didn't really want to see them be Andrei Vasilevsky. Like, that wasn't realistic, but we just wanted to see them at least just have some type of consistency, at least just be competent. That's really all you can ask for on a rebuilding team, I think. But Gail, what about you? What's your analysis of the Blackhawks goaltending so far?
I actually got a comment from one of my favorite people on Twitter today, and she said, I just hope that they can stay healthy, which is a good point, because Richardson has already basically said he's going to rotate them every other game, which is a really good game plan, right? Because we know that Mrazek has had a history of groin injuries, so this is going to keep him hopefully fresh and not too overworked. And the same with Soderblom, this is brand new for him. So giving him a little bit of break here and there instead of like having him like automatically be the guy, it's good for everybody. It's a win-win.
Yes, I agree with all of you. I think maybe my last final point is I feel like the goaltenders right now are kind of taking on the attitude of the entire team, and that's really good to see. Obviously, Peter Mrazek had a pretty bad season last year with injuries and just being inconsistent, and it just probably didn't go the way he really wanted it to go. And Arvid Soderblom now is a pretty good opportunity to show that he could be the Blackhawks goaltender of the future. So I think both of them are playing just like the rest of the team are playing, with a chip on their shoulders. They want to prove people wrong, just like the rest of the team does. They want to prove to people that they're no slouches. Like, they're not pushovers. Like, they're going to try and they're going to make it hard on other teams every night. So that's really what I'm seeing, is that they're playing like they got a chip on their shoulder. So, and that's, like you said, rebuilding team. That's really all you want to see from them. So our final topic before we get to the shootout round is about, obviously, our favorite topic this season, Connor Bedard. We cannot go on to a show without at least mentioning him. That would be malpractice on our part. But Hunter recently wrote about all the Connor Bedard hype and just about the amount of media attention that he's been getting, just how just how much attention he's been getting. And some people think it's been a little bit too much for him as he's been brand new to the league. He's 18 years old, but people want to see Connor Bedard. He really is the face of the league right now. So, Hunter, we're going to let you take the stage here. Give us your whole take on just the whole Connor Bedard media circus. Is it too much, too little, just about right? Tell us all your thoughts.
It's got to be more. It feels like it might be too much, but I'll put it this way. I live in Canada, and for us, we have two major sports networks. It's TSN and Sportsnet. And I got to say, like, the majority of our episodes of SportsCenter, spelled CENTRE, which is the correct way of spelling it, there's too much humbleness from hockey players. There's too much like, oh, well, it's for the team, and it's better for the logo on the front of the sweater. But during the morning on our networks, we get all of ESPN. So we watch your news broadcasts, and it's so refreshing to watch athletes speak candidly and have personalities and individuality. I can think of a dozen or so podcasts between active NBA players and NFL players who, are able to be comfortable in their own skin and not feel like they're a distraction from a team. Like I always would think of how PK Subban was a character in the National Hockey League, or a player in the National Hockey League who had character and personality. But wherever he went, he was considered a distraction or a bad locker room presence, or not all about the team. And I feel like hockey just has this culture. It's one of the things that makes the sport so great, is because it's true selflessness in pursuit of a greater goal, which is lifting that damn trophy over your head. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it hinders the growth of the sport. And now we have a guy who is, sorry to rant, but we have this player who is phenomenally good from a very young age. And I understand he's 18 years old, 19 years old, and you don't want to put too much pressure on someone, but these kids have, hockey in particular, these players have faced an incredible amount of media scrutiny throughout their lives. They follow this Don Cherry logic of wearing a suit to the rink every single day since the age of like 11. They're already trained for this, and I just feel like for everyone thinking maybe we've given him too much attention, and for the most part, you're probably right, because he's still a young guy. Like, he can't even drink. But I think we have to be able to be comfortable with allowing players to talk and focusing on them and creating a bit of individuality for a sport that, let's be honest, its growth is stagnant. And we want it to be able to, if we want to share this sport around the world and give it the attention that it's the greatest sport in the world, it deserves more attention, then we have to be more comfortable with putting our superstars on a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think, the reason why people really gravitated towards Matthew Tkachuk and even towards Trevor Zegras during his rookie year was because of that personality and that fun, even though they come from smaller market teams. And I do think the NHL did take advantage of that a little bit better than they have, but overall it needs a lot of work, because there's a lot of great players with a lot of great personalities, but those were good examples too of just, it shows you that people want to see that and people really gravitated towards that. But Gail, what do you think about the Connor Bedard media attention? Do you think it's too much, too little, just right? We're going to be, what are you thinking here? It's going to be like Goldilocks.
I actually have two parts to my answer. So my first knee-jerk reaction is, he's only 18 years old. I think it's too much. Give the kid a break, right? I mean, he basically said, it's an honor and this is great and it's part of the territory. And he's doing a commendable job of doing it. But he even said, it is a little bit tiring. And I really just do think that I'm hopeful. I really am hopeful that in time it'll all die down, because he just wants to focus on hockey. And he's doing this because he knows it's part of his responsibility. But does he really, really, really want to just, I don't know. But then, on the flip side, I love some of the personality that's come out from our little Connor Bedard, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, yeah, I like hockey, right? And I slept like a baby. Or even I think there was one time when he said, oh, yeah, that's a really good mix of the old guys and us young guys. So you enjoy it, and you do enjoy having that personality, but maybe just simmer down a little bit.
Connor, what do you think about all of this? Like I said, it's like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Like, what is it? too much, too little, just right. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I find it so funny when I go on the NHL Instagram and there's like any sort of milestone or they're trying to promote it, like, oh, it's Bedard versus Nathan MacKinnon tonight on ESPN, and you see all 31 other fan bases with the like donut emojis, like, oh, they're glazing him too much. This is marketing 101, and like Hunter said, this is what you have to do to get those personalities out. And as far as the attention goes, he's handled himself tremendously, like Gail said. And yeah, it is a lot, but you have to remember that I think we're in a time now where, especially among like Gen Zers and millennials, those are generations that not only use like social media, but may lean more toward the athlete as opposed to the team. Like, you may not be an Oilers fan, but you can love Connor McDavid. You may not be an Avalanche fan, but it's really easy to gravitate to someone like Cale Makar or Nathan MacKinnon. And eventually, I think, as Bedard gets more time, as he gets more experience, we'll start seeing maybe sort of the same thing. And yeah, this is how you grow the game and reach new fans. And it's something that here in the US, the other three major sports leagues, I think, do a really great job with. You see someone like Patrick Mahomes and commercials and doing endorsements, someone like Shohei Ohtani. And I think hockey could really take advantage of that with someone like Connor Bedard. And sure, playing in Chicago, playing for an original six team definitely helps. But I think this attention, in a way, like Hunter argued, is sort of necessary because that's how you grow the game and bring in new fans.
Yes, I'm with you guys. I hear you guys. I totally don't disagree that the NHL definitely needs to do better with this, because I think I was telling you guys earlier, like, my dad's a huge hockey fan, and if I bring up names that all of us would know, like Carter Verhaeghe or he's like, who? Like, and that's the NHL's fault. Like, come on, like, they do have to get better at this. But I have to say, I am a little bit with Gail here. I actually laughed, I think, when the Blackhawks faced the Boston Bruins and the TNT channel said, we will have a camera on Bedard's every shift that he takes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this kid. It was like they're gonna have a 24/7 live feed of this kid, like on Big Brother. Like, it's just everyone can tune in at any moment. Oh my gosh, this kid. And like I said, I'm all for it. I think it's great. Like you said, it's a great way to grow the game. But I'm just like, just a smidge, just kind of let him breathe just a smidge is how I'm kind of that's kind of my thing. Well, like I said, I'm all for it. Just I think there can be both. I do think there can be both. But I will say, just to kind of pull it all together, is he does remind me of the Patrick Kane media in the way of when Patrick Kane started on the Blackhawks. Obviously, social media wasn't as big back then, but the camera's always on Patrick Kane. I even noticed, like, even during the New York Rangers playoff run, the camera was always on Patrick Kane, even though it's a team full of superstars. He kind of just has that persona. That's what people wanted to see. So I do think it is that, like, Patrick Kane effect for sure. But yeah, like I said, I'm all for it. Just I think it could be dialed back a little bit where there could be a happy medium there. We can know him and be excited about this. But yeah, like I said, I don't know what the smidge is there, but I think it could be a smidge. But okay. Now, so to end the show, we're going to do our famous shootout round. This is a chance where we do our quick fire questions and answers, just really quick rapid fire. You guys ready for this?
Yes.
Bring it.
Okay. So question number 1. So the Blackhawks have made some lineup changes recently. One of them moving Ryan Donato off the top line and putting Taylor Radish on it. And now we know Taylor Hall is week to week after re-aggravating his shoulder. And Tyler Johnson now took his spot on the first line during the last practice. This was the big news that came out of practice today, was that Taylor Hall, unfortunately, will be out. So to even further the intrigue, Nick Foligno was placed on the right wing instead of Radish in practice as well. So what do you think about these changes, and who should be playing with Bedard? Gail, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, I don't know you guys, but I, for some reason, really kind of like this whole Nick Foligno with Bedard thing. Right? Like, he's basically off the ice, kind of been a father figure for him, and probably on the ice as well. Why don't we see how that goes on the ice? I think maybe they could have some chemistry together, and I think it's going to be kind of fun. Hopefully they'll play together, and it's not just one of those things where he's subbing in for somebody else. I want to see it.
Okay, so I might have a little bit of a different opinion here. I was kind of thinking maybe instead of Foligno, to put Radish and Johnson on the top line with Bedard. At least that way there's some kind of familiarity already. Tyler Johnson was already with Bedard during training camp and stuff, and then also Radish has been with Bedard already. So it kind of keeps some familiarity there instead of just switching everyone around. And then I would move Donato to the second line with Athanasiou and Reichel, just give that more speed element. That's, I think what I would do instead of doing the Foligno, Tyler Johnson, Bedard. But I don't mind it. I think it could be an interesting look. Connor, what do you think? What would you do?
Brooke, I'm sort of in agreement. Yeah, I'm sort of in agreement with you there as far as Johnson and Foligno go, just in terms of I think both could be really good mentors, really solid veterans. I just don't know for myself personally if I like them both on the top line, especially when, like you said, you have Taylor Radish right there who maybe brings a little bit more offensive upside in that regard. But with Kurashev returning, you're going to have to kind of juggle things around a little bit. So I definitely interested to see how it goes, and I think it'll be worth keeping an eye on.
Hunter, what do you think about the first line? Keep Foligno, Johnson, and Bedard, or would you change it?
I don't mind having a guy like Foligno on the top line because I think there is some merit. Maybe he's not a top six forward skill set. I think there's something to having just a veteran who knows how to win a shift, if that makes sense, who knows how to steal a puck off the boards and who knows how to properly break out of a zone. I think that little things like that can be good for the development of Bedard, not just in terms of winning or producing points, but just how to play an NHL shift, if that makes sense. But selfishly, if we want to go nuts, I want to see Athanasiou. I love seeing speed on the top line. I know that I'd like to have him staying on the second line with Reichel because I still think that they have long-term chemistry. But I've noticed and I've seen some reporters tweeted that Athanasiou and Bedard do their 3-on-3 shifts together, which is set for overtime. And I would just like to see at least a couple times through a game where you just let the speed go nuts and see if you're able to generate anything off of that.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of good options there, and we'll see how it goes. I'm all of it to be. So next question of the shootout. So Corey Perry is actually leading the team in points right now. He has 2 goals and 3 assists and 5 points in his first 6 games. Connor, what do you think about Corey Perry? Will he be the team's leading scorer going forward, or is this a fluke?
I don't know if he's going to be the leading scorer going forward, but I think it could be a little bit more. He's obviously just under a point per game right now, and I know that's pretty high, but I think he could be on track for a good season. He's really seemed to find his groove on that third line, playing with a guy like Jason Dickinson and having that familiarity with Luke Richardson. And I think if he keeps this up, maybe it could make him an under the radar trade candidate if the Blackhawks are out of contention and he kind of becomes with something similar to what we saw with Max Domi last season.
Hunter, what do you think about Corey Perry? Is this a fluke or is this thing for real?
I don't think it's a fluke. I think that he's had an opportunity now to get a more than regular shift and also a little bit of time on the power play. I think we're going to be surprised at his point total at the end of the year. He's had 10 seasons of at least 50 in his career, and he might not be the same player he was when he won a Hart Trophy and made it on the Canadian Olympic team. This guy has done literally everything you can do in hockey to win. And I think now that he didn't get the same opportunity he had with Dallas or Montreal or Tampa in those playoff cup runs, but now getting a regular shift with the Blackhawks and some power play time, I think we'd be surprised that he might end up with like 40 or 50 points at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Gail, what do you think about Corey Perry? Fluke or he's here to stay? He's the real deal here.
Corey Perry is saying, "How do you like me now?" Right? Everybody was, all of a sudden everybody loves him because he's one of the top producers. And you want to know what? I'm with Hunter that I really do think that he's positioned himself and he's got the net front presence and he knows what to do and he's done it in the past. And I'm not saying he's going to be like the top point producer or anything like that, but I think he's going to be up there with this team.
Negative I ever said about Corey Perry before this season. I think he got it for sure. So we're running out of time here. So final two questions here. We got to talk about Kevin Korchinski. Obviously, he started the season with the Blackhawks, was not sent back to the Seattle Thunderbirds. So now 9 games is going to be the key here if they want to send him back. So would you, at this point, now that we've seen him, do you keep him or send him back? Hunter?
I'll be quick. Keep him. Let him have his opportunity. He's got ridiculous talent. He's going to make mistakes. Let him make mistakes, and let him play at the World Juniors as well. Let him get some 26, 28-minute nights with Canada at Disney United.
Gail, what do you think? Send him back to Seattle or keep him?
Yeah, I know that this might be a bit of a moot point because I think that Richardson basically kind of admitted today that he's probably going to keep him around for a while. But I'm with Hunter that I think that he would really benefit from Team Canada. And I would also like to see Isaac Phillips get a shot in the NHL. So maybe they can make that both work.
Connor, what do you think? Keep him or send him back?
I totally agree with Gail and Hunter. I think you kind of have to keep him at this point. He had solid games against Pittsburgh and Boston, maybe in those Colorado and Vegas games last week. Some of those weaknesses were a little bit more exposed, but you have to be able to grow and find your groove. And I think now is just the perfect season to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm with you guys. At this point, I think keep him. If he doesn't look out of place or too overwhelmed, you got to keep him at this point. That's where I'm at. So for our final question, really quick for the shootout round, the Blackhawks have 3 more games this month of October. So they got the Bruins tomorrow, the Golden Knights on Friday, and the Arizona Coyotes on Monday. How many points do they get? Gail?
I am going to go with the positive 2 wins, 4 points. They're going to thwart the Boston at home that they lost to. And I think that they'll get a win against Arizona.
Connor? How many points do they get?
Yeah, I'm actually very excited for the game tomorrow because I will be there, first of a few games for me this season, and it'll be cool seeing Bedard. But I'm going to go 2 points, so a win or maybe a pair of overtime or shootout losses.
Hunter, what do you think? How many points do the Blackhawks get?
I'll split the answer with 3 points. I think they're going to get thumped by Boston. I think they'll lose in overtime to the Golden Knights, and then they're going to beat up on Arizona.
Yes, I said 4 points the last time for their opening week or for the road trip, and I was right, I think, about that. So I'm going to stick with 4 points here. I think they'll beat the Coyotes, and I'll say they'll have revenge against the Golden Knights. I'm going to say that. Okay. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll reconvene, and hopefully our predictions are correct. But that will end our show for the Blackhawks Roundtable. Thank you, Hunter, Connor, and Gail, for joining me today. And thank you all the Blackhawk fans for listening. Obviously, this is a really fun season, and we can't wait to continue giving you content. So please be sure to follow us all on Twitter. Our usernames are up here on the screen. Please be sure to subscribe to our Blackhawk Substack and upgrade it to premium if you want even more content. That link is in the video description below. And please tell us your thoughts on all the topics we discussed. We want to hear all your thoughts on everything, on Connor Bedard, on the defense, on their schedule. Let us know all your thoughts. So thank you so much, guys, again, and we'll see you guys next time. Go Hawks!